What if everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle was a lie? What if the flawless public image, the glamorous appearances, the carefully crafted media persona, everything she projected for decades, was hiding a secret so fundamental, so simple, that it could change the way the world sees her forever? Imagine scrolling through headlines, scrolling through social media, and realizing that the person you've watched for years, the woman who captured the hearts of millions, might have been hiding one of the most basic truths about herself: her age. Yes, her age. That one number that's supposed to define timelines, milestones, and even credibility in Hollywood and royalty alike. It might sound trivial, but when it comes to someone who has been at the center of global attention, someone who has navigated the glitzy worlds of television, celebrity, and monarchy, age isn't just a number. It's a weapon, a shield, a secret. And according to shocking information now surfacing, a California beauty doctor may have just pulled back the curtain. Medical records, private, confidential, meticulously kept, appear to reveal Meghan Markle's real birth year, 1977. That's a revelation that could change the narrative of her entire life story, a revelation that could ignite debates in both Hollywood and Buckingham Palace. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. So why now? Why would this leak happen at this precise moment in time? Perhaps timing is everything. Meghan's life is never far from the public eye. She has a global platform, deals, interviews, and appearances lined up, all while keeping a meticulously managed image. A leak of this magnitude doesn't just randomly appear. Someone, somewhere, decided this information should surface. And it wasn't just any random whistleblower. It was a beauty doctor in California. A man who had intimate access to her personal medical files, someone she trusted enough to walk into his clinic, unguarded, expecting confidentiality and care. The fact that those records may have ended up in the public domain is shocking, and it begs the question, what else might this doctor know, and why did he choose now to share it? Let's pause for a moment and consider what these records really represent. Medical records are, by law, private. They are protected. They are intimate. They contain the sort of information you would never expect to see exposed, the sort of details that could damage reputations, careers, and personal lives. And yet here they are, allegedly revealing not just her real age, but potentially other details that no one was meant to know. Think about the audacity of it. Think about the fear and tension that must have rippled through Meghan's inner circle when this happened. Think about the headlines, the social media uproar, the endless speculation. And ask yourself, what would you do if a secret this deeply personal was suddenly thrown into the spotlight for millions of people to dissect? The world has always been fascinated by Meghan Markle. From her early acting career in Los Angeles to her whirlwind romance with Prince Harry, she has captivated audiences with her charm, her wit, and her apparent poise. But behind the glamour lies a history that most of us only know in fragments. She is a woman who has navigated intense scrutiny, who has faced relentless tabloid coverage, who has had to balance her personal life with her public persona. And yet, if these medical records are accurate, they suggest that even the most fundamental aspect of her identity, her age, may have been misrepresented, hidden, or perhaps carefully managed for years. Why would she do that? Was it vanity? Career strategy? A calculated attempt to control how the world perceives her? Or was it something more complex, something rooted in fear, in protection, in survival? Let's think about the implications. Age affects perception in every industry, and nowhere more so than Hollywood and royalty. In Hollywood, it influences casting, roles, contracts, and the way fans and executives perceive talent. In the royal world, age can impact protocol, expectations, and public image. A discrepancy in age, whether intentional or accidental, could have ripple effects across every sphere of her life. Suddenly, a simple number, 1977, doesn't just reveal a birth year. It could explain past decisions, public strategies, and even personal anxieties. And it raises another question that's hard to ignore. If this information has been kept hidden for decades, what else might be concealed? What other truths about Meghan Markle's private life have been carefully curated or manipulated? The timing of this leak is as compelling as the content itself. Meghan is no stranger to controversy. Every public appearance is scrutinized, every statement is analyzed, and every deal she makes, from Netflix contracts to charitable engagements, becomes a news cycle story. A revelation like this, about her age, couldn't be more explosive. It's the sort of information that feeds talk shows, online debates, and fan speculation for weeks, even months. People are already asking, how did this information slip through? Who else knew? And what does it mean for her carefully constructed public persona? We also need to consider the human element. Imagine being Meghan Markle for a moment. Imagine the fear and anxiety upon learning that confidential medical information, something you trusted your doctor with, is now in the hands of the public. The potential for embarrassment, the dread of judgment, the sense of betrayal, it's immense. Trust, once broken in such an intimate way, can't easily be restored. And yet, for all of this, Meghan is no stranger to managing crises. She has a team of advisors, PR specialists, and legal experts who navigate her public image every day. How did they respond? Did they try to contain the leak? Did they attempt to spin it, deflect it, or deny it? And how did the public respond to the first hints of this information? Let's not forget the role of social media, where information spreads faster than ever. When whispers of this leak first appeared, fans, critics, and casual observers alike flocked to platforms to speculate, analyze, and comment. Memes were created, conspiracy theories spun, and debates ignited across Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok. In an era where digital perception can be as powerful as reality, a revelation about age is not just personal, it becomes a public spectacle. And Meghan, who has always been careful about controlling her narrative, suddenly found herself in a situation where the narrative was out of her hands. Can you imagine that feeling, knowing the world is analyzing your life, your image, and now your age, without your consent? And yet, despite the chaos, there's a deeper intrigue here, a question that no one has fully answered. Why did this doctor leak the information? Was it accidental? Was it revenge? Was it a calculated move to make a statement? Or perhaps it was simply someone who couldn't resist the allure of celebrity exposure. Whatever the motive, the consequences are undeniable. A single document, a single record, has the power to rewrite decades of public perception. And for Meghan Markle, that means reassessing not just how she is seen, but how her story is told, and how history might remember her. But here's the twist that makes this story truly irresistible. The birth year, 1977, isn't just a random number. It aligns with certain events in her life, explains discrepancies in public timelines, and, if accurate, could reveal that some events we thought we understood about Meghan's past may need to be re-examined entirely. From her early acting career in Toronto and Los Angeles to the moments that catapulted her into global fame, the timing of her age can shed new light on decisions, relationships, and public narratives that have long been taken at face value. Suddenly, this leak isn't just about age, it's about context, history, and perception. And now, as we begin this deep dive into the revelation of Meghan Markle's real age, consider this. The world thinks it knows her story. They think they've seen it all. But what comes next? The details, the insider accounts, the shocking documents, will challenge everything you believe about her. This is not speculation. This is not rumor. This is a document, a medical record, a number that may finally reveal the truth. And yet, even as we uncover these details, more questions emerge. How did Meghan's inner circle respond? What does this mean for her image in Hollywood and the royal family? And most importantly, what secrets might still be buried, waiting for someone brave enough to reveal them? So stay with us, because this story isn't just about a number. It's about a woman, her life, her choices, and the revelation that may change how history remembers Meghan Markle. And it all begins with a doctor, a record, and a number that no one was supposed to see. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It started with what seemed like an ordinary consultation in a sleek, sunlit clinic in California, a place where high-profile clients went to seek care, trust, and discretion. Meghan Markle, always meticulous about her image and privacy, had walked through these doors countless times before, confident that her secrets would remain locked behind the sterile, glass walls of the clinic. She trusted the doctor, someone she had known professionally for years, someone who had handled her with care and discretion. But sometimes, the very people closest to your secrets are the ones who can become the most dangerous. Imagine, for a moment, being in that room, the soft hum of medical equipment, the faint scent of antiseptic mingling with luxury oils, the quiet professionalism of the staff. Meghan, poised, composed, yet cautious, hands folded elegantly, discussing treatments, health concerns, the usual consultations of a celebrity navigating the pressures of age, appearance, and public scrutiny. There was nothing out of the ordinary, or so it seemed. The doctor, a man with decades of experience, had never intended to become the center of a global scandal. Yet, here he was, holding in his hands documents that could, if revealed, alter the course of Meghan's carefully curated public life. Medical records, personal notes, appointment details, and yes, the birth date. One simple number that had been protected with legal confidentiality. One number that confirmed a truth Meghan had worked hard to obscure. She was born in 1977. But why did he do it? What compelled a trusted medical professional to leak this information? Was it a moral decision, a sense of duty to truth, or something darker? Curiosity, greed, the irresistible temptation of having a front-row seat to a story that would dominate headlines worldwide? We may never know the full answer. What we do know is the impact, the shockwaves that radiated from that moment forward. As news of the leak began to circulate quietly among certain media insiders, whispers grew louder. The doctor, perhaps realizing the magnitude of what he possessed, began sharing small, calculated pieces of information, careful to avoid direct legal repercussions, yet hinting at the bombshell contained within the records. It was enough to spark curiosity, enough to make people ask, could this be true? Was Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, really hiding her real age? Think about it. A celebrity's age is more than a number. It's a narrative tool, a part of their brand, a subtle yet powerful detail that can affect public perception. If the public believes you are younger than you are afforded certain privileges, opportunities, and an aura of timelessness. For someone like Meghan, whose life is constantly under scrutiny, from Hollywood to the palace, the stakes are extraordinarily high. Every detail, every revelation, is magnified under the global lens. And yet, the doctor's leak wasn't just about a number. The documents contained layers of context that painted a fuller, more complex picture of Meghan's personal life. Appointment notes hinted at cosmetic procedures, treatments for stress and exhaustion, and other intimate details that most of us would never expect to see in public. Every entry, every notation, every timestamp built a narrative that was both fascinating and invasive. Suddenly, the world could piece together aspects of her private life that had been carefully guarded for years. The leak also raised critical questions about trust and privacy. If a medical professional could betray that trust, who else might have access to such sensitive information? Could agents, assistants, or other staff members inadvertently or intentionally reveal secrets for profit or notoriety? And for Meghan, the realization must have been chilling. The walls she had built around her private life were more porous than she could have imagined. As the leak gained traction, journalists, social media influencers, and fans alike began to dissect every detail. Analysts pored over the records, comparing dates with public appearances, interviews, and career milestones. Was there a pattern? Did the birth year align with known events? Or did it create contradictions in her public timeline? The implications were vast. For instance, certain statements she made in interviews, appearances at royal events, or media claims about milestones suddenly needed re-examination in light of this new information. Audience, imagine the magnitude of this. A single document in the hands of a trusted doctor, and decades of public narrative could shift in an instant. The power of information, when wielded or leaked at the right, or wrong, moment, is staggering. Every detail in those records was now a puzzle piece, and the world was racing to assemble the picture. But there's also a human side to consider. How did Meghan feel upon learning of the leak? Fear, anger, vulnerability, perhaps all at once. To have someone you trusted with personal health information suddenly become a potential threat, someone who could expose intimate aspects of your life to global scrutiny, is terrifying. For a public figure whose image is both currency and shield, this breach wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. And yet, Meghan's inner circle, reportedly tight-knit and highly strategic, would have immediately gone into crisis mode, attempting damage control, assessing the spread, and planning the next move. The doctor's actions also opened a window into the complex ethics surrounding celebrity privacy. Should the public have access to this information? Does public interest justify the exposure of intimate medical details? Or is it a blatant violation of privacy? These are questions that have long plagued the intersection of celebrity culture and journalism, but in this case, they take on an even more intense urgency. A single leak can ignite global conversation, force media outlets to choose sides, and put a spotlight on questions of legality, morality, and trust. But let's not forget the ripple effect. Once the information started circulating, it wasn't just media outlets that reacted. Social media exploded. Fans, critics, and casual observers alike picked apart the details. Memes were created, speculation ran rampant, and every possible narrative was entertained. Some defended Meghan, questioning the motives behind the leak. Others pounced, using the information to challenge her public persona, her statements, and even her credibility. In an instant, one doctor's decision had ignited a firestorm that reached far beyond the confines of a single clinic. And here's where it gets even more complicated. The leak didn't occur in a vacuum. Timing, as always, is everything. Meghan's career and public image are tightly intertwined with global perception, contracts, media appearances, and ongoing scrutiny from the press and public alike. To have her birth year exposed at a moment when attention is already high amplifies the impact exponentially. Every public appearance, every interview, every deal that she engages in now carries the weight of scrutiny influenced by this revelation. But perhaps the most striking aspect of the doctor's leak isn't just what it revealed, it's what it implies. A birth year, while seemingly simple, speaks to much more than age. It implies a timeline of events, a context for life decisions, and an alignment, or misalignment, with public statements and documented appearances. It raises questions that demand answers. Why was this number concealed? What might it reveal about decisions she made in her personal or professional life? And, most importantly, what else could the documents contain that remains unseen, waiting to surface at the right or wrong moment? Imagine for a second the tension in that clinic. The doctor, fully aware of the magnitude of his possession, carefully weighing each action. Every moment, every choice, could result in a global revelation. And the consequences weren't just theoretical, they were imminent. Once information like this enters the public sphere, it cannot be contained. Once rumors start, they spiral, feeding themselves on speculation, opinion, and gossip. And Meghan, for all her poise and strategy, was now facing a reality where her carefully curated image might be dismantled piece by piece. The story of the leak also highlights an uncomfortable truth about celebrity life. No matter how much control you believe you have over your image, there are always vulnerabilities. Trust can be broken, records can be exposed, and secrets, even those buried for decades, can suddenly see the light of day. And in this case, that light revealed something simple yet monumental, a birth year that challenges everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle. And as the world began to react, insiders hinted at even more troubling details. The doctor's leak, they said, might be just the tip of the iceberg. There were whispers of additional records, notes, and personal information that could surface if the story continued to unfold. The stakes were rising, the tension mounting, and the public had barely begun to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. So, audience, consider this. One doctor, one leak, one birth year. 1977 set off a chain reaction that could reshape perception, history, and perhaps even the narrative that Meghan Markle has spent decades carefully constructing. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. It's one thing to hear a claim that Meghan Markle's real birth year might be different from what the public has believed. It's another entirely to see the evidence, official, legal, intimate documents that confirm it. And that's exactly what has emerged from the leak. Pages of medical records, annotated notes, appointment logs, and charts that seem mundane at first glance, but, when read carefully, reveal a story entirely hidden from the public eye. Imagine holding those papers in your hands. The first thing you notice is the sterile formatting, dates, signatures, procedure codes. There's nothing glamorous about it, but each line carries weight. Each annotation is a clue. For someone like Meghan, who has spent decades constructing a public narrative, The meticulous details in these records are a revelation. They don't just tell a story about her health. They tell a story about time, about choices, and about a carefully managed image. So, let's start at the beginning. The most obvious detail, the one that started it all, was her birth date. According to these documents, Meghan Markle was born in 1977. That simple piece of information immediately raises questions. Why would this matter? At first glance, a birth year might seem trivial. But in Hollywood, in celebrity circles, and in royal protocols, age shapes perception, opportunity, and influence. A number can be the difference between landing a coveted acting role, securing a high-profile deal, or maintaining an image of youthful vitality. In Meghan's world, every year counts. But the records reveal more than just a number. They provide context. Appointment logs show patterns of medical consultations aligned with the public pressures she faced. Cosmetic procedures, wellness treatments, stress management protocols. They paint a picture of someone navigating intense scrutiny, someone meticulously managing appearance, health, and energy levels in a life under constant public gaze. And while many celebrities undergo similar regimens, the details in these records suggest a strategic, highly calculated approach, one that aligns with the persona she has cultivated over the years. Consider the subtlety of it. The records don't scream scandal, they whisper strategy. Dates of visits, notes about skin treatments, monitoring of stress indicators, and lifestyle recommendations all point to a woman aware of her image and the stakes surrounding it. And the juxtaposition of these treatments against her real age, 1977, adds layers of context. Certain procedures and consultations that seemed routine now gain new significance. They suggest foresight, planning, and perhaps even a sense of necessity. Every action, every entry, tells a story of a woman maintaining control over her narrative while the world assumed she was a few years younger. Now, think about the public appearances over the years. Meghan has been photographed countless times, from red carpets to royal engagements. Fans and critics alike have commented on her timeless look, often wondering how she seemed to defy the passage of time. These records offer insight. When you know her actual birth year, certain patterns emerge, choices that align with anti-aging treatments, wellness regimens, and cosmetic interventions designed to maintain youthful appearance. Suddenly, moments that seemed serendipitous or naturally elegant appear intentional, calculated, and consistent with a strategy to manage perception. Audience, ask yourself this. Would you approach life differently if every public glance, every photo, every media appearance were analyzed under a microscope? Meghan's records suggest that she not only understood this pressure but actively prepared for it. She anticipated the scrutiny and took steps to manage it meticulously. And yet, despite the sophistication, these details were vulnerable to exposure. A single leak, one doctor's decision, turned decades of private effort into public fodder. But the records reveal something even more complex. Beyond age and treatments, there are subtle contradictions embedded within. Appointment notes occasionally reference timelines or milestones that, when cross-referenced with public events, don't quite align. Could these inconsistencies be intentional? Were they strategic misdirections to protect privacy? Or are they simply the result of human error? Every line, every annotation, invites analysis and speculation. And when the world starts piecing together these clues, the narrative that Meghan has presented for decades begins to shift. Then there's the question of context. Medical records rarely exist in isolation. They are snapshots, moments frozen in time, that gain meaning when read alongside life events. For Meghan, these moments tell a story of a woman balancing career ambition, public image, and personal health. Each record correlates with milestones. Film projects, public appearances, interviews, and royal engagements. And when cross-referenced with the birth year, 1977, a pattern emerges. Every decision, every treatment, every consultation seems to align with a timeline that reveals meticulous planning. She wasn't just navigating life, she was orchestrating it. Emotional stakes also come into play. These records are deeply personal. They are intimate glimpses into a life shielded from public view. To have them exposed is not just embarrassing, it's a violation. It's a moment that would leave anyone vulnerable, regardless of fame or status. For Meghan, whose life has been under constant scrutiny. This breach amplifies tension. Every personal detail, every number, every note, is now subject to public judgment, and the psychological impact cannot be overstated. Imagine the fear, frustration, and urgency that must have arisen the moment the leak was discovered. Yet, there is also fascination. As viewers, we are drawn to the human drama behind these documents. The intersection of privacy, trust, and power creates a narrative that is compelling, almost cinematic. We watch a story unfold where ordinary procedures, the consultation, the note-taking, the routine follow-up, become instruments in a tale of secrecy, revelation, and strategy. And the birth year, so simple, so fundamental, is the linchpin. It explains, contextualizes, and reframes everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle. Audience, let's pause and consider the implications. How does the revelation of a birth year change perception? For fans, it may challenge the narrative of timeless elegance and effortless youth. For critics, it becomes evidence in arguments questioning authenticity, transparency, and image management. And for historians, analysts, and royal observers, it adds nuance to a timeline that has long been presented as linear, cohesive, and carefully documented. Suddenly, the story of Meghan Markle is no longer just about public appearances or media narratives. It is about strategy, calculation, and the lengths a person might go to maintain control over perception. Then comes the deeper layer, interpretation. What do these records tell us about her decision-making? About how she balances public scrutiny with private life? About the careful alignment of treatments, appearances, and engagements to reinforce a youthful, vibrant image? Each piece of data in the records is a fragment, and when assembled, they reveal a deliberate approach to life under constant observation. This is more than vanity. It is self-preservation, public strategy, and, perhaps, a measure of self-protection in a world that scrutinizes every choice. And yet, the most compelling question remains, why now? Why did these records leak at this particular moment? Timing, in the world of celebrity and royalty, is everything. A revelation of age could influence ongoing contracts, media perception, and public engagement. It could affect the reception of interviews, the framing of narratives, and even the responses of royal family members. The leak doesn't just reveal information. It disrupts timing, narratives, and the delicate balance of public perception that Meghan has maintained for decades. We also cannot ignore the ethical dimension. Should the public care about these records? Do we have a right to this information? Or is it an invasion of privacy that crosses moral and legal boundaries? The debate is fierce. Supporters argue that transparency is justified given Meghan's public prominence, while critics assert that medical privacy is sacred, inviolable, and should remain protected. And in the middle of it all stands Meghan Markle, whose life is suddenly scrutinized not just for her public actions, but for the intimate details of her health, appearance, and personal strategy. Then there is the viral effect. Once the records entered public consciousness, social media erupted. Fans analyzed photos, timelines, and statements, juxtaposing them against the information revealed. Memes circulated, theories were born, and the internet dissected every nuance. The story became bigger than a simple revelation of a birth year. It evolved into a debate about identity, perception, and authenticity. People wanted answers, connections, explanations. And as every new detail emerged, the intensity of the scrutiny increased. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. The records suggest not just a concealed birth year, but a careful orchestration of appearances to maintain a certain narrative. Treatments timed around public appearances, interventions designed to manage stress, health, and image, all aligned with strategic life events. This is not coincidence. This is planning. This is deliberate. And the leak exposes it to the world, offering a rare glimpse into the behind-the-scenes orchestration of a life lived under scrutiny. Audience, imagine what this means. One document, one leak, can alter decades of narrative. It challenges what we believe, forces reconsideration of public perception, and opens the door to new scrutiny, new interpretations, and new revelations. The birth year is not just a fact, it's a key, a lens through which every past action, statement, and appearance can now be reevaluated. And yet, even as we decode these records, we realize that they may only be the beginning. Insiders hint at additional details, notes, and annotations that could surface, revealing even more about Meghan's private strategies and personal life. Each revelation has a ripple effect, creating tension, uncertainty, and intrigue. And as the world begins to process the implications, one question looms larger than all others. What else is hidden in these records, and what will be revealed next? The answers, as always, are waiting. But one thing is clear. The documents themselves, the records that confirm Meghan Markle's real birth year as 1977, are more than just paperwork. They are a window into a life carefully managed, meticulously curated, and now, unexpectedly exposed. And what comes next in this story, the insider reactions, the public fallout, and the unseen details, will change the narrative in ways no one anticipated. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Public perception is a powerful currency. It can open doors, secure deals, and elevate someone to global fame, or it can destroy reputations overnight. For Meghan Markle, crafting an image was never accidental. From her earliest days in Los Angeles to the moment she stepped into the royal spotlight, every appearance, every interview, every gesture was curated with precision. And yet, behind this carefully polished facade lies a truth that few have ever glimpsed. The real woman behind the public persona, her fears, her ambitions, and, according to recent leaks, the private details that she spent decades guarding, her real age being just the beginning. Let's step back to her early career. Before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan navigated the Hollywood landscape as an actress, a public figure, and a woman with ambitions far beyond her craft. In interviews, she presented a charming, intelligent, and relatable persona. On screen, she embodied roles that made her appear youthful, vibrant, and effortlessly stylish. But anyone familiar with the entertainment industry knows that appearances are carefully orchestrated. Red carpets, photo shoots, and media appearances are meticulously planned events where even the smallest detail, hair, makeup, posture, smile, can influence public perception. Meghan mastered this early on. Every detail mattered, from the way she framed her voice to the angles in which she was photographed. Every public moment was an opportunity to reinforce a narrative. Audience, think about that for a moment. How much of what we see is actually reality? How much is calculated? For Meghan, the answer appears to be almost everything. Her image wasn't left to chance. It was managed with intent, with a keen awareness of how she would be perceived by millions. And the recent medical records leak, confirming her birth year as 1977, adds a layer of understanding to these efforts. What we interpreted as effortless youth or natural elegance might, in fact, have been reinforced by careful planning, treatments, and strategic appearances designed to maintain an image aligned with a younger public persona. Consider the contrast between public and private. On Instagram and in interviews, Meghan presented herself as a figure of grace, modernity, and poise. She was relatable, stylish, and articulate, qualities that made her endearing to audiences around the world. Behind closed doors, according to the leaked records, there were treatments, consultations, and regimens designed to maintain health, appearance, and energy levels in a life under constant scrutiny. It's a duality that many celebrities navigate, but for someone in Meghan's position, straddling Hollywood fame and royal responsibility, the stakes were uniquely high. Every lapse in appearance could become headline news. Every moment off camera had the potential to disrupt the carefully managed narrative. Humor often accompanies public commentary about celebrities, especially when age and image are involved. Memes, social media jokes, and late-night commentary often exaggerate or poke fun at perceived discrepancies. But behind that humor lies a serious reality. The pressure to maintain a certain image is immense. For Meghan, the combination of Hollywood and royal expectations created a perfect storm of scrutiny. And when you add in the confirmation from leaked records, her birth year, the timeline of procedures, the careful maintenance of wellness routines, it becomes clear that every public appearance was not just performance, but strategy. But why does this matter? Why should we care about the difference between perception and reality, between the image and the truth? Because perception shapes opportunity. In Meghan's case, it shaped her career trajectory, her public reception, and even her interactions within the royal family. Her carefully crafted image allowed her to navigate two worlds: the entertainment industry, which rewards youth and vitality, and the monarchy, which demands poise, elegance, and composure. And while the public often sees only the polished exterior, the leaked documents offer a glimpse into the unseen labor, planning, and attention to detail that made that image possible. Audience, consider this. Have you ever wondered how celebrities maintain the illusion of effortless perfection? How they appear so poised, youthful, and unflappable under constant scrutiny? The answer lies in strategy, preparation, and in some cases, meticulous management of personal information, age being one critical factor. The leaked medical records are a rare insight into this process, confirming that what appears natural is often deliberate, calculated, and carefully orchestrated. Let's break it down further. Meghan's image was carefully crafted across multiple dimensions: appearance, behavior, media presence, and even timing. Her wardrobe choices were curated to project sophistication and relatability. Her public statements were calculated to reinforce intelligence, modernity, and empathy. Social media posts were strategically timed to maximize engagement and control narrative flow. And when combined with the recent revelations about her real age, these choices take on new significance. Every red carpet appearance, every magazine cover, every viral image was part of a larger mosaic designed to influence perception and shape her personal brand. Yet, despite this meticulous construction, cracks appeared. Sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. Public scrutiny intensified during the royal transition. Every move was magnified, analyzed, and critiqued. Questions about her motives, authenticity, and alignment with royal expectations began to circulate. Critics dissected her actions, comparing them to tradition, protocol, and public perception. And in this climate, the importance of controlling even the smallest details, like age, became even more critical. The leaked records, confirming her birth year as 1977, are a stark reminder of how integral control of personal narrative is in navigating such a life. There's also an emotional dimension to consider. Crafting and maintaining a public image is not merely strategic, it's deeply personal. For Meghan, the pressure to appear a certain way, to meet expectations, and to maintain her brand likely carried emotional weight. Stress, anxiety, and the fear of public judgment would be constant companions. The leaked records hint at routines and treatments designed not only for appearance, but for mental and emotional resilience. This is the human side of the story, the woman behind the Duchess, the celebrity, the public figure. She is managing not just perception, but well-being under extraordinary scrutiny. And yet, even the most carefully crafted image can be challenged by external forces. The leak of her medical records is the perfect example. A single piece of information, her birth year, threatens to disrupt decades of carefully managed perception. Suddenly, narratives that seemed complete and polished are subject to reinterpretation. Public confidence in the image she has cultivated may waver. Analysts, journalists, and social media users are re-evaluating appearances, timelines, and public statements through a new lens. And Meghan, for all her poise and planning, faces the reality that even the best-managed image can be undermined by exposure. This chapter also raises questions about trust, secrecy, and vulnerability. How does someone maintain a public persona while protecting deeply personal information? How do you navigate a world where every detail, appearance, health, timeline, is scrutinized by millions? And when a leak occurs, what is the emotional impact on the individual? The medical records not only confirm her age, but also expose a reality in which personal privacy is fragile, even for someone as powerful and high-profile as Meghan Markle. Audience, ask yourself this. If the world were watching your every move, analyzing every word, every gesture, every choice, would you feel the same pressure to manage your image? Would you go to great lengths to control perception, to ensure that even minor details, like age, reinforce the narrative you wanted the world to see? For Meghan, the answer appears to be yes. And the leaked records provide an unprecedented glimpse into the mechanisms she used to maintain that image, highlighting both the sophistication and vulnerability inherent in such a life. But the story doesn't stop at image alone. The implications extend to perception, influence, and power. By controlling her image, Meghan was able to navigate two powerful and demanding worlds simultaneously: Hollywood, with its relentless focus on youth and appearance, and the monarchy, with its rigid expectations, traditions, and scrutiny. Each decision, from wardrobe to media engagement to the careful management of personal health, was designed to ensure success and acceptance in both spheres. The leaked records, confirming her real age, challenge assumptions and force a re-evaluation of the careful orchestration behind her public persona. And as we peel back the layers, we begin to see a narrative of meticulous strategy, personal resilience, and calculated public engagement. The birth year, the wellness routines, the treatments, all of it forms a mosaic that explains her ability to maintain a composed, youthful, and polished image despite extraordinary pressures. It's a story of preparation, foresight, and the extraordinary effort required to navigate a life under constant observation. Yet, even with this understanding, a critical question remains. What happens when control is lost? The leaked records have shifted the balance, placing intimate details in the public domain. The audience, the media, and the world are now part of the equation. And the consequences? They are unpredictable. Once private strategies become public knowledge, the individual behind the image must respond, or risk losing authority over their narrative. And that is where the tension rises. Meghan's carefully crafted image, honed over decades, faces a new reality: exposure. The birth year, the timeline, the records, they are more than evidence. They are a challenge. How will she respond? How will her inner circle react? And most importantly, what secrets might still lie hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge? But what came next? The reactions from the people closest to her, the insiders who saw the leak unfold, and the consequences that would ripple across Hollywood and royalty alike, would change everything. And no one saw it coming. When news of the leaked medical records first reached the royal family, the atmosphere inside the palace was nothing short of electric. Imagine the corridors of Buckingham Palace, the quiet formality of marble halls and historic portraits, suddenly shaken by the revelation that one of their own, the Duchess of Sussex, might have concealed her real birth year. For decades, the monarchy has operated under the watchful gaze of the public, but there are still boundaries, unspoken rules about what is private and what is shared. And this breach? It violated every one of those boundaries. At first, the initial reaction was disbelief. Palace aides and advisors reportedly stared at the documents, incredulous, turning pages as if hoping the numbers would change, hoping somehow the 1977 birth year was a clerical error. But the documents didn't lie. The records, confidential and precise, confirmed what insiders had long suspected but never had proof of. Age, while seemingly trivial, has enormous significance within the royal household. It informs protocol, ceremonial responsibilities, and public perception. A discrepancy, no matter how small, can ripple outward, challenging traditions and assumptions that have governed the monarchy for generations. The first whispers of the leak reached King Charles III. He reportedly reviewed the documents in private, accompanied only by trusted aides. His reaction, according to insiders, was a mixture of incredulity and strategic concern. This wasn't just about age. It was about trust, transparency, and the potential implications for the entire royal brand. Every member of the monarchy is not only an individual, but also a symbol, representing centuries of tradition, protocol, and expectation. If the world believed that Meghan had misrepresented herself, it could tarnish more than her image. It could cast shadows over the royal institution itself. Audience, imagine being in that room. The weight of centuries of tradition pressing down, combined with the modern media scrutiny that can turn a single detail into an international headline. The palace operates on discretion, secrecy, and control, but a leak like this introduces chaos. Advisors reportedly debated the next steps. Should they confront Meghan privately? Should they attempt to suppress the leak? Or should they release a statement to control the narrative? Every option carried risk. Every option demanded careful calculation. Prince William, according to sources close to the palace, had a different reaction, one tinged with personal concern and curiosity. As the elder son and heir apparent, William is acutely aware of public perception and royal responsibility. He reportedly viewed the leak as a betrayal, not just of public trust, but of family trust. There was frustration at the potential disruption this revelation could cause, both in the media narrative and in ongoing royal engagements. His concern was strategic, yes, but also deeply personal. After all, Meghan is his sister-in-law, and family dynamics within the monarchy are notoriously complex, full of alliances, rivalries, and unspoken rules. Princess Anne, the Queen's only daughter, was reportedly less concerned with emotion and more focused on principle. Her reaction reflected decades of navigating palace protocol and dealing with scandals both minor and major. She is known for her no-nonsense approach and adherence to rules. According to insiders, and viewed the leak as a challenge to institutional integrity. Regardless of Meghan's public persona or media narrative, the breach of privacy and the exposure of personal records represented a failure in the channels of confidentiality that the monarchy has relied upon for centuries. The royal aides, often the unsung strategists behind the scenes, immediately went into action. Meetings were convened in secure rooms, communications were drafted and redrafted, and contingency plans were developed for every possible scenario. One senior aide reportedly said, "We had to treat this like a crisis, not because it's about age, but because it's about control. Once control is lost, everything spirals." The palace, in this moment, was navigating a delicate balance. Protect Meghan, protect the institution, and manage public perception, all at once. Audience, ask yourself this. How would you react if you were suddenly faced with a family member's private information being exposed to the world? The pressure, the emotions, the stakes, it's almost impossible to imagine. And within the monarchy, where every action is scrutinized and amplified, the tension is magnified 1,000-fold. This isn't just a family disagreement. This is a public crisis with historical, political, and media ramifications. Yet the reactions didn't stop at private strategy sessions. Some members of the royal family reportedly debated whether to confront Meghan directly. Would they call her into a private meeting? Would they demand explanations? Or would they take a more subtle approach, issuing statements through intermediaries or letting the narrative unfold? The stakes were high, because any misstep could trigger media backlash, fan outrage, or public misinterpretation. And in the modern era, where leaks can go viral in seconds, timing is everything. Inside the palace, whispers of tension began to circulate. Advisors speculated about the impact on public engagements, charitable initiatives, and even ongoing projects involving Meghan and Harry. Every detail was analyzed: the potential fallout from the leak, the possible media response, and the implications for the monarchy's broader reputation. One aide reportedly remarked, "We're playing a high-stakes game where every move is scrutinized, every reaction magnified, and every decision could have consequences that last for years." But it wasn't just strategy and optics that fueled the drama. Emotion played a significant role. Trust had been broken. A private detail, her age, had become public, and the question of motive hung in the air. Was the leak malicious? Was it careless? Was it intended to destabilize the family or the institution? Every member of the royal household had to navigate the emotional terrain of betrayal, disappointment, and the uncertainty of what might come next. And this emotional layer added a richness to the story, a tension that extended far beyond public perception into deeply personal realms. Prince Harry's reaction is particularly fascinating to consider. While he was physically distant, residing in the United States, he reportedly received updates through trusted channels. The leak, by virtue of its sensitive nature, required discretion. Harry's concern was multifaceted. Not only was his wife's privacy violated, but the leak also had implications for their public image, media strategy, and personal safety. Sources suggest that Harry was simultaneously protective, frustrated, and anxious. Protective of Meghan, frustrated with the breach of confidentiality, and anxious about how this revelation could escalate in the press. Audience, consider the stakes from Harry's perspective. Here is a man navigating a complex transatlantic life, balancing royal expectations with personal autonomy, and suddenly confronted with a revelation that threatens to undermine both. How do you respond when someone exposes an intimate secret about your loved one? And how do you manage the fallout when the world is watching? Harry's dilemma illustrates the extraordinary pressures faced by anyone living in the glare of global scrutiny, particularly within the confines of royalty. Meanwhile, the palace communications team began preparing for public queries, statements, and potential leaks to social media. Drafts were created, revised, and tested, considering every possible scenario. Every word mattered. Every phrasing was deliberate. The goal was simple, yet monumental: protect Meghan, preserve the integrity of the monarchy, and manage public perception in a world where information spreads faster than any internal briefing could contain it. But the most intriguing reactions came from the inner circle, the aides and confidants who had long observed Meghan's strategic approach to image and privacy. Some reportedly expressed admiration for her ability to maintain control over public perception for so long. Others expressed frustration, believing that the exposure of her age, while perhaps minor in isolation, could trigger a cascade of challenges. Insider comments hint at a mixture of respect, envy, and anxiety, emotions familiar in the high-stakes world of royalty, where every detail is amplified, analyzed, and weaponized. Audience, let's pause and consider this. The royal family is a living institution, balancing tradition, duty, and public scrutiny. When one member's private details become public, it isn't just a personal issue. It's an institutional challenge. The reactions we are describing, the strategy, the tension, and the emotional complexity are all part of managing a family whose every move is historically significant. And the leaked medical records, confirming Meghan Markle's real age, introduced a variable that none of them had anticipated. And yet, for all the planning, strategy, and emotional management, there was an undeniable truth: the leak had happened. The private information was now public knowledge. No amount of preparation could undo the initial shock. What unfolded next? The discussions behind closed doors, the debates among family members, and the ripple effects through media channels would not only impact Meghan but also test the monarchy's ability to navigate a modern crisis. So, audience, imagine the tension inside Buckingham Palace. Imagine the king, the heirs, and the aides poring over documents, debating next steps, and weighing every possible outcome. Imagine the balance between protecting family and protecting institution, between personal loyalty and public responsibility. And imagine the anticipation, the fear, and the uncertainty that hung in the air as everyone waited to see what would come next. But the story doesn't end there. Because while the palace worked behind closed doors to manage the fallout, the world outside was already reacting, speculating, and dissecting. And what came next? The public scrutiny, the media frenzy, and the unprecedented reactions would escalate the situation far beyond the walls of Buckingham Palace. And what happened next would ignite a scandal that no one in the royal family or the public could have fully anticipated. The moment Meghan Markle's real birth year, 1977, began circulating, the conversation exploded online and in the media. Suddenly, what was once a private detail became a global debate. Fans, critics, and casual observers alike took to social media, talk shows, and news articles to analyze, dissect, and question. Was this revelation simply a minor fact, or did it alter the narrative surrounding Meghan's life and public image? The line between public curiosity and personal invasion blurred, creating a whirlwind of controversy that no one could ignore. Public perception has always been a double-edged sword for Meghan. On one hand, it amplified her influence and elevated her to a position of global attention. On the other, it subjected her to constant scrutiny, with every word, gesture, and appearance dissected. The revelation of her age added a new layer to this scrutiny. People began to question timelines, public statements, and even previously celebrated achievements. Suddenly, what had seemed effortless or spontaneous was examined through a lens of strategy, calculation, and, some argued, deception. Social media became the epicenter of this debate. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit erupted with speculation, commentary, and memes. Some users expressed outrage, accusing Meghan of intentionally misrepresenting her age to gain opportunities in Hollywood or to maintain a youthful image in the public eye. Others defended her, arguing that age is a private matter and that the invasion of her medical records was unethical and potentially illegal. The contrast was stark. One camp focused on judgment, the other on empathy. Both sides, however, fueled a conversation that shows no signs of slowing down. Audience, think about this. How would you react if a detail as personal as your age were exposed to the world? Would you feel violated, misunderstood, or unfairly judged? And what if that detail had been carefully guarded for decades, part of a strategy to navigate public and professional pressures? Meghan's situation illustrates the tension between public curiosity and personal privacy, a tension that grows exponentially when the individual is both a celebrity and a member of one of the most scrutinized families in the world. The debate wasn't confined to social media. Major news outlets quickly picked up the story, analyzing the potential implications for Meghan's career, public image, and even her relationships within the royal family. Headlines ranged from neutral reporting, simply stating the birth year, to sensationalized takes questioning authenticity, transparency, and integrity. Analysts and commentators dissected past appearances, comparing them against the timeline revealed by the medical records. Every public event, interview, and media claim was revisited. If Meghan was born in 1977, what did that mean for her past statements about age, life milestones, or personal experiences? Each comparison fueled further debate, creating a complex narrative web that extended far beyond the initial leak. What made this debate particularly compelling was the intersection of public and private spheres. On one level, age is a deeply personal detail, an intimate part of identity that most people only share selectively. On another level, age has public implications, influencing perception, career opportunities, and societal expectations. Meghan's situation exemplifies this tension. As a public figure, her age contributes to the way she is perceived by fans, media, and even the royal establishment. Yet the disclosure of her real age through private medical records crosses a line, raising ethical and moral questions about boundaries, consent, and the right to privacy. Humor and irony also played a role in the debate. Memes and online commentary often exaggerated or mocked perceived discrepancies in age, sometimes drawing attention to seemingly minor details, like a youthful appearance in a certain photograph or a comment in an interview. But beneath the jokes and satire lies a deeper observation. The public has long measured Meghan's image against expectations, timelines, and ideals. The leak, in effect, provided raw data for these judgments, sparking discussions about authenticity, image management, and societal pressures. Interestingly, some analysts began exploring the timeline of Meghan's public and private life, cross-referencing the 1977 birth year with career milestones, personal achievements, and public appearances. Certain roles she took on, events she attended, and interviews she gave suddenly acquired new context. In some cases, what had been celebrated as youthful energy or timeless elegance could now be understood as careful management, preparation, and strategic positioning. Audience, think about that. Every public decision, every appearance, might have been informed by a calculated understanding of perception, an understanding that now, thanks to this leak, could be scrutinized in a new light. This debate also highlighted contradictions between public narrative and private reality. Meghan has always presented herself with a combination of openness and charm, sharing personal stories in interviews and public engagements while maintaining a carefully controlled image. Yet the leaked records revealed a discrepancy, creating a tension between the image she projected and the reality of her private timeline. This contradiction is what makes the age debate so fascinating. It's not just about numbers. It's about authenticity, narrative control, and the intersection of personal identity with public expectation. Critics seized upon this discrepancy, questioning whether Meghan had intentionally misrepresented her age for career or social advantage. Some suggested that her Hollywood background, where age can dictate casting and opportunity, might have motivated a strategic decision to obscure her true birth year. Others pointed to the pressures of the royal transition, suggesting that age could influence public perception, ceremonial responsibilities, and media narratives. Each argument fueled speculation, debate, and, in many cases, judgment. Meanwhile, supporters argued that the disclosure itself was unethical, emphasizing that the information was obtained from private medical records without consent. They noted that age, while publicized in certain contexts, is a personal detail and should remain protected. The ethical implications of exposing such information sparked discussion not only about Meghan's rights, but also about broader questions of privacy, trust, and the power dynamics between celebrities, media, and the public. Audience, consider this. If your private information were revealed against your will, how would the world respond? Would they empathize or judge? And how much of public debate is influenced by curiosity versus morality? Adding another layer, the debate became symbolic of larger societal issues. Age, especially for women in the public eye, is often scrutinized, criticized, or fetishized. The Meghan Markle age revelation taps into this cultural tension. The pressure to appear youthful, the double standards applied to women, and the intense media scrutiny of every life milestone. In this sense, the debate transcends individual circumstances, reflecting broader cultural dynamics about gender, celebrity, and societal expectations. Interestingly, some public commentators began highlighting the irony of the situation. Meghan, who has spoken about empowerment, authenticity, and self-confidence, now faced scrutiny over a detail that many would consider minor. The public was judging her not only for the leak itself, but for the implications of strategic image management. This irony fueled heated discussions online. Was the outrage justified, or was it an example of society's obsession with controlling women's narratives? Audience, ask yourself this. How often do we judge public figures for private choices, and how much of that judgment is influenced by cultural expectations versus factual information? As the debate continued, experts were called in to provide context. Psychologists, celebrity image consultants, and media analysts weighed in on the impact of the leak.